Welcome to episode 162 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast. I'm Chris, and joining me is Shane. We are amateur astronomers who love looking up the night sky, and this podcast is for anyone else who likes going out under the stars. And today we have somebody who really loves going out under the stars. Joining us as a guest, we have Mark Radichi from Refreshing Views, which is a website and a YouTube channel. Welcome to the show, Mark, and maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your online presence and what you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me, guys. I'm really excited to be here. I'm looking out the window. It's a beautiful blue summer's evening in England, and I guess you guys have just got up. It must be, breakfast time in Canada?
Just passed, yeah.
Yep. And it sounds like we have a similar weather day. It's blue skies and sunshine here too.
Yeah, I've been fascinated because when I listen to your podcast, we think we have it bad in England. And the weather's always changeable and it's always seems to be wet and cloudy. And then I listen to what you guys have to go to with forest fires, record levels of mosquitoes, minus 30 degrees, plus 30 degrees. And I thought, maybe we don't have it so bad in England after all.
Yeah, I don't think there's a perfect spot, to do astronomy in the world. Maybe there's some that are better. I think some of the southern U.S. states like Arizona, it's not bad. It's dry. I think they're usually cloud free, but I guess they have the extreme temperatures as well. But yeah, I guess we just deal with it, and it sort of becomes normal after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I guess so. So, well, thank you for having me. I run a YouTube channel, which is really just more of a hobby. It's something I do for fun, called Refreshing Views. And I've always been interested in astronomy. I can't imagine anyone not being interested in astronomy. And there are so many imaging and photography YouTube channels. But what I felt, was what I like to do is go outside and actually look at the night sky, to actually go and see, things on the moon or deep sky objects and sketch and actually have that experience. So I'm still learning and still trying to work out how to make that come across in a video. And for example, last weekend, we went to the UK's biggest star party, which is up in Kellingheath, up in Norfolk. So a few hours drive around on the other side of London from me. And we had a wonderful time, observing 2 or 3 nights, few cloudy patches. But yeah, had a really great time. So thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, this is our pleasure. How many people attend that star party?
Must be a few hundred, I'm guessing. So it's quite big.
Yeah.
And then there's trade stands and secondhand sales. And normally there would be talks, but obviously this year no one wanted to be sort of inside in the same room as other people.
Yeah, that's similar to our large summer star party. We have a few star parties in the province throughout the year. The largest one is the Saskatchewan Summer Star Party in Cypress Hills. And I think there's usually about 300 astronomers that will show up for that. And same thing, usually there's talks, but not this year. It was just, observe and that was kind of it. So, but that's really what you're there for, in my opinion. I sometimes never attend the talks anyway, because I'm too busy sleeping, trying to catch up on sleep from the night before.
Yeah, we can but hope. But I actually made my first sort of proper astronomical observation in your part of the world. Well, a few hours down the road in St. Catharines in Ontario, near Toronto.
Yeah, I used to live not too far from there.
Did you? Whereabouts? Where's home? Where was home?
Well, I lived in. I'm from the East Coast, but I lived in the Kitchener-Waterloo area for a while, which is just about maybe an hour and a half north of St. Catharines.
Yeah, so I worked at a boarding school. So I left school at 18 and didn't want to go to university, and so I went and got a job at a boarding school in St. Catharines in Ontario, and we had a talk from Terrence Dickinson. The writer, and he came to the school and gave a talk, and he said, "This is going to be amazing." He said, "This is, astronomers wait for decades for bright comets to come around, and two came around at the same time. So we had Haleakala in 1996, and then Hale-Bopp the following year, 1997. Yeah. So I borrowed a pair of binoculars and found the plough and worked out how to find these comets. And yeah, that's sort of really what kicked me off as a sort of an active observer."
Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah, I'm sort of the same. I started observing about then and actually listening to Terrence Dickinson talk. And and he actually wrote a column in the, I think it was the Globe and Mail or the Chronicle Herald, something like that here. And you could kind of print out or cut out the star charts that he was talking about. Really cool.
Yeah. So what's your main telescope, Mark? What do you like to observe with?
So I have a Celestron C11, which I bought secondhand from a chap in the astronomy club, and he'd gone down that classic route of trying to use an F10 instrument for astrophotography for imaging. And then he realized actually he was using it as a guide scope while the wide angle short F ratio telescope was on top with the camera attached. And it was actually the world's most expensive guide scope. So he bid it up for sale. And I snapped it up because I really love looking at I love all of it, but I really love looking at the moon and the planets. I love the solar system imaging, the very fact that you've got this dynamic world and features that are coming and going. And then a few years ago, I melted my credit card and paid for a shed to be built, with a roll-off roof. So in our old house, we modified, a couple of friends, we modified just an ordinary B&Q shed, just an ordinary home improvement shed. I made that into a roll-off roof. My wife took the kids away for the weekend, and so I booked them in, and she was absolutely furious when she got back. She said, "You've done what in the garden?" And there were 2 posts sticking out the ground. So we really enjoyed that, but I really love it because it's got the convenience. So when it's, it's a night that's a bit iffy, or it's a night that's, can you be bothered? And you think, well, I'll just pop outside for an hour or two. And you don't have, it takes me longer now to put my coat on and make a cup of tea than it does to set up. And then more importantly, when you're tired and you're ready to come back in, all you got to do is put the dust covers on, roll the roof back, and you're back inside 5 minutes later. None of this, put the tube into the garage, put the mount in, put the counterweights in, roll up the extension cable, put the chair and table away. It's just brilliant. It's heaven. I love it.
What size is your roll-off observatory?
Oh, crikey, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think it's 12 by 12 with a little warm room on the side. So yeah, we had a good plot of land that I cleared. Luckily, neither of us are into our gardening. So when we bought the house, there was a greenhouse there. So we gave that away to a friend. And then I converted the plot of land. And it's been a lifesaver because I don't know what it's been like in your part of the world, but certainly when we've had two or three lockdowns now over the last year, and we've got 2 children upstairs, homeschooling, trying to do their lessons online. My wife and I both trying to work. And so luckily I could use the warm room as my, work office while we were doing that. So it's been a bit of a lifesaver over the last year. Not that we knew that, of course, when we had it built.
Yeah. How dark is it at your location there where you have your roll-off? Yeah,
it's not too bad. I can't complain because we live in a village near Salisbury, which is not a big town anyway. But you still got neighbours' lights, and there's still street lights, and there's it's a big sort of army military training area on Salisbury Plain. That's where the army go and train. And so you still got all the towns and the garrisons and stuff. So it's better than living in the big city, I can imagine. But when I go to places like Kellingheath, or when we go up onto Salisbury Plain itself, that's where it's proper dark, and you get away from all the street lights. So no, you're probably going to laugh at me now, but I say it's not too bad. But you can see Coma Berenices, and you can see the beehive cluster, and
it's pretty good.
Yeah. So I say, well, it's not the best, and then people say, "What? Do you see the beehive cluster from your garden?"
Yeah, that's decent. That's kind of like the town I grew up in. Yeah, you can see those brighter. You can probably see like Andromeda, maybe naked eye, or
that's not too bad. Yeah. So what do they call that? I don't know, green zone or something like that. I guess it would be on the sky rating.
Yeah.
So you can see the clouds in the Milky Way, like scutum cloud and stuff like that.
Oh wow!
Gee, so that is nice.
Yeah, the Cygnus Lane. So, and when we used to live in the town, so we moved out here a few years ago. There literally was a street light behind a tree at the end of the garden that shone into the shed, and I bought some wooden boards and had them sticking up on poles, so just to try and block off the street lights. At least I had a little bit of shadow.
I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast or not, but the house that my wife and I currently own, we prior to buying it, we probably looked at over 50 other houses, trying to find the right one. And we had a list of, must-haves and another list of deal breakers. And on my must-have / deal breaker was like, it has to have an observable spot, like a place to set up a telescope and I have to be able to see the southern skies and preferably also the eastern skies. And so like I say, we were looking at dozens of houses and we were very picky. We were not finding anything that met our criteria until we found the dream house. It was perfect. It had everything and then some, except to the south was a street light right at the end of the driveway. And I said, sorry, hon, we can't buy this house. And we're still married, so that's a good thing. And we found another house that met a lot of the criteria. But I can relate, having a spot in the yard to observe is important, and and you do what you have to. And especially in the city, nothing's perfect, but sometimes setting up a few light sort of blocks or shades really can improve the backyard observing too.
But I always say that, it could be worse. I could be in the pub. At least you know where I am, and I'm not. I could spend a small fortune.
That's right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I barely drink anymore because I don't have any money.
So they say, isn't it? Get your kids into astronomy, they won't have money for drinking drugs.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's really cool. I've been watching your videos, and it's amazing to see somebody else actually talking about visual observing in the digital age, because although it seems very popular now for people to have new YouTube channels or podcasts either about astrophysics or astroimaging or a little bit of both, and then kind of the visual stuff just gets tagged on at the end. If you're lucky, a 45-minute podcast might have 3 or 4 minutes of visual observing content. So your presence is well named Refreshing Views, I thought anyway. Mm-hmm. So yeah, congratulations on the channel. Very neat.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's what we're so lucky to have a hobby where we can go outside and see these things for ourselves. I don't know, I'm trying to think of an equivalent. If you're a fossil hunter or a historian, you can't go back and see these things for real. Yet we can wander out into the garden, and I'm trying to think back to the observations. Well, I did one called observation earlier this year, which was the globular, the big bright globular in the Andromeda galaxy.
Oh yeah, G1. Yeah, I saw your video.
Yeah, G1.
Yeah, very
and
cool.
They reckon it could be a globular, or it could be the core of a galaxy that's been swallowed up by the Andromeda galaxy, and it's lost all its outer stuff. And regardless of whether it's a galaxy or the core of a globular or the core of an ancient galaxy, and I was thinking, that's amazing. We can actually go out and see this firsthand. There it is in the night sky, and it's so much better than just watching telly or being on TikTok or whatever kids do these days. But I find it very quite literally a refreshing view. You've gone out and see this stuff firsthand.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I saw how you hunted it down, and first off, I only know one other person who hunted it down, and they showed it to me, and that person is Shane. So I have to mention that. But you hunted it down using Sky Safari instead of Star Chart. So I was just kind of curious about your method actually for finding stuff in the nighttime sky, because I noticed that you're using more the digital assisted technologies than I do, for example. So I just wondering if you could kind of tell us about your process of finding stuff, and then maybe we can talk about some sketching.
Oh, sure. So I keep a little list on my iPhone of interesting things that I want to look at. And that's made up of things on, for example, the Herschel 400. I'm still years later working my way slowly through that. And I go through it with tremendous enthusiasm and then get bored of endless star clusters in Cygnus or endless faint galaxies in Virgo. But I also read the forums and read the magazines, and you think, oh, that looks like an interesting target. I haven't seen that. So I maintain this list of things I want to go and look at in whatever, when we've next got a nice clear sky. And so I still have my star charts, and I still use them when I've got my binoculars, for example, if I'm using my tripod mounted binoculars. And so I still know how to star hop, but I must admit, having Sky Safari and linking it over the Wi-Fi to the telescope does make things so much easier. Because you say, right, I'm going to look at the Ring Nebula, for example. Well, first of all, I'll swing it over to the nearby, Vega. And you point telescope to Vega, line it up, center in the crosshairs, brilliant, align, swing across to M57, bang, there it is in the eyepiece. And what would take, I know that's quite an easy target to find with a bit of practice, But what used to take a while to hunt these things down now takes, a matter of seconds. And the other good thing as well is when you do a big long go-to is you can then put your eye to the eyepiece, and it's like being in a spaceship because all the stars go whizzing past and you can then just follow the eye along. So you do spend more time looking. I find I spend more time looking at an object now than I do hunting it down. And then I'm trying to think of, I used to call it my nemesis objects. There's a thin edge-on galaxy at 891.
Oh, up in Andromeda, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very low surface brightness.
Yeah.
I really struggled to find it. And I didn't know if I was looking exactly at it, using my paper charts, wasn't in the right place. Go back, start again.
Yeah.
And of course, with Sky Safari, if you've done the alignments, bang, there it is in the center of the field of view.
Yeah.
And, you can then cross-reference the stars. The star charts are always rotated to the right field of view. You can overlay it with circles. So I've got an eyepiece view and I've got my finder view. So it does. And then, of course, because I'm using a diagonal in the C11, you can then just press a button and it flicks it left to right. Mm-hmm. So it makes things so much easier.
If you want a similar galaxy, now that you've seen that,
okay,
go for because that 891 is like classic for being so difficult to spot the first time. And then what's strange about 891 is once you've seen it, then it becomes kind of easy to see in a way. I don't know if you've gone back and revisited it at all.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean. I'm what you put up on the screen. 4236. This is
NGC 4236. This is my new NGC 891.
Your new nemesis objects.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that. It's up in Draco, and it's part of the M81 group. Okay. So it's pretty close to M81 and M82. And so the really frustrating thing about this object is the field is very easy to find. So the field is super easy to locate. So you think, great, no problem. I've got the field in the finder or whatever. But then seeing the object it's maddening. Anyway, I'll just throw that one out.
To learn that when I was starting out, is that you're trying to find M33 in a pair of binoculars.
Yeah.
And it says magnitude 8. Is it magnitude 8? Something like that, isn't it?
6.
And you look at it and you go, I can't see anything. There's nothing there. And of course, it's spread out over such a large area that although it's a relatively bright magnitude, it's really hard to see.
Yeah. So this is only 10th. And you think 10th magnitude and an 11-inch, that's going to be easy. But yeah, I thought I saw it in my 4-inch, and then I had my friend Mike's 12-inch the next night, and we hunted it down, and it seemed like it was more difficult in the 12-inch. I mean, it's just this maddening object. I don't know why it's so difficult, but it's a little low right now, of course, because in the evening, Ursa Major and Draco are fairly low, and this is right above the bowl of the Big Dipper asterism. So maybe as winter kind of swings around, could be a good object.
Brilliant. Well, it's on the list. It's gone in the phone.
There you go.
But I also do you find it, because I like to write things down and put things in my logbook, that I remember observing objects because of the situation. So I always have objects that's some of these nemesis objects, some of these challenge objects. I think, that was the night. I saw it with so-and-so. Do you get that as well? Because if you log things down and record them, you have that association.
How about you, Shane?
Yeah. I like when it comes to logging, I don't do it enough, but if my memory isn't very good. So if I'm not logging and writing down objects like your nemesis objects or just whatever my observing project might be, I do have a tendency to kind of forget if I've actually observed something or not and what it looked like. So, I do like to not sketch, but like I have a notepad with me typically at the eyepiece, and I do like to jot my notes down about what I saw with the object, as well as, eyepiece and any filters that may have been involved. I like the idea, though, of the nemesis list. I don't actually have one. I just have a number of, various kind of lists that I am working on, and one of these projects may turn into an entire list of nemesis objects, because It's the O'Meara Hidden Treasures list. He observed all of this stuff with a 4-inch refractor from Mount Kilauea, somewhere on Kilauea, I think, on the Big Island of Hawaii. So a very dark place. And I was trying to do some of this stuff, or trying to see some of these objects just last weekend, not far outside of our city, but very similar conditions to what you described, Mark, in your backyard, where you can see the Milky Way overhead. The sky is probably a green zone, and I couldn't see any of these O'Meara objects. They were invisible to me. So I think I will need a very dark sky, and even then, I'm kind of questioning whether or not I'll see this stuff as well as I'm hoping to see.
Yeah, you obviously need a trip to Hawaii then.
Well, if that's what I have to do, then I guess that's what I have to do.
Yeah, you have no choice.
Yeah, that's right.
I've gone
so a few years ago. Oh, sorry, Chris, go on.
Oh, go ahead. Go for it.
I was going to say, a few years ago, we had a trip to Tenerife. We had a club trip out to the observatory on Tenerife, up on the mountain.
Oh, cool.
And of course, we were a lot further south. I think it was 28 degrees north. So a whole load of southern stuff was suddenly nice and high up in the sky again. But what really made a difference was just the altitude, because suddenly we were at whatever it was, 2,500 meters, and you could see the clouds underneath with all the humidity. So we were up in the dry zone, and that made such a difference. One of our club members, he didn't like the drive because it's literally straight up the mountain, and it's all switch back, all the way up this mountain for ages. And he said, I can't face driving up tonight. I'm going to have a chill out back in the hotel. And he lent me his 80mm S6 refractor and I had that with a 31mm Nagler eyepiece. And oh my goodness, on a dark sky, up in the Canary Islands, on top of the mountain, looking through Cygnus and down into Scutum and Sagittarius. Oh my goodness, are there a lot of stars?
Wow. Yeah, that would be amazing. The altitude really does make a difference. I've even noticed that around here. Our province is quite flat. It's, a lot of agricultural land, but the further east you go, you gain quite a bit of altitude, and it really does make a difference, a substantial difference. What are you looking up there, Chris?
I went here a few years ago in 2015, and these are the, let's see, this is the Pan-STARRS telescope. You hear of the Pan-STARRS comet that was discovered. And then this is the new big solar telescope on Haleakala. There's a gate here. And so if you want to observe here, you have to make previous arrangements. You can see there's a gate here and there's a gate here. And the gate here goes down to a military institute. And so I was told to meet a certain person at a very specific time. Do not come 1 minute early and do not come 1 minute late. I thought, and actually we started talking before this recording where I said, oh, I'm always like 5 minutes early. They were like, no, don't come early. I'm like, what's the big deal? So I show up like maybe a minute early to meet this guy. And I show up here. And then as soon as I park, I can see this guy walking from here this way. And this gentleman is carrying a gun. And what happens up here apparently is that you've got it's a secure military facility, and they were just coming over to check if I had my pass or not. But I was like, whoa, this is getting kind of scary up here. So anyway, I was able to go up and observe in behind the Pan-STARRS telescope just with my binoculars. They had some other telescopes there and that sort of thing. But that's at 10,000 feet, and that is into that zone where your brain stops functioning as well as you would like it to.
Anyway, not bad skies up there, is it? Looking at those pictures.
Yeah, pretty wild, eh? Yeah. So let's see. Let's talk about sketching. So I was looking at some of your sketches. I have to ask, some of your sketches are they look like white chalk or white charcoal on black paper.
So yes, I've always sketched traditionally with the conventional black pencil, on white paper, the ordinary way, if you like. And was it last month? I met a space artist, an astronomer artist, and she was showing me how she draws with black paper and white pastels.
Okay.
And it really makes a difference. It's a much more natural way of drawing. So I've started taking that on. I'm still trying to get used to it because, of course, it's a different medium, a different approach. But that means you don't have to then convert it on the computer, make a negative image. And you literally are drawing what you can see.
Yeah.
So, rather than trying to do it the other way around, which is a harder way. If you want to put a bright galaxy in, then you just put more and more white pastel on and then smudge it with your finger. So it's a much more natural looking medium. So I'm still getting used to that and still quite enjoying that. That's good fun.
Cool. Have you looked up, and I guess you seem new to it. I haven't tried it. Well, I've tried it a little bit a long time ago, just for sketching the moon, but haven't tried it as much on deep sky objects. I was wondering, have you looked up like the Mellish technique or anything like that?
Yeah, so that's what this lady was telling. This is Mary McIntyre was telling me. Yeah, so you file a little bit off onto a piece of sandpaper, and then using a blending stump or the cotton buds, you can then apply the dust as if you're building up layers. So yeah, using white pastel dust.
Cool. So what have you sketched so far using that technique?
So I've practiced, what have we done? So we've done the Ring Nebula, did that the other day, and the M76, the little dumbbell up in Perseus. What else have I done? Oh, and the big one I did at Kelling. So we had a good night's clear night on the Friday, was the whole of the Sword of Orion. So I borrowed, rather than take my telescope out of the observatory, take the mount off, take the counterweights off, and then have to obviously set it up there, then bring it back and set it all up back in the observatory. I borrowed a friend's telescope, borrowed a little wide angle 80mm Apo. And with that, you could get the whole of the Sword of Orion into the eyepiece. So that was quite cool. And then also the North American Nebula and doing the Cygnus Wall. And you could see it. You could see the curve of the sort of Central America region in the North American Nebula, and then the brighter part of the Cygnus Wall with the filter. So I did that. That took that took far too long, about an hour and a half.
Cool. I noticed that it looked like I watched part of that video. Actually, I watched the whole video, but for whatever reason, I could only listen to some of the sound. I was doing something else. And I noticed that you're also a BinoView user. Were you using the BinoViewer to do those sketches?
So, we have this tremendous dew. So I've never experienced dew like this. It was about a mile from the sea, a mile from the coast. And the dew was something else. I mean, we could have been in the rainforest. Everything was just dripping wet. Oh, wow. And my friend didn't have his dew heater. So we were actually swapping a dew heater from my eyepieces to his. So I had to swap. I had to spare 20mm. So without the BinoViewer. But it's the sort of Orion I did with the BinoViewer. And I must admit, it is such a lovely way to observe because you get to use both eyes. Mm-hmm. It's a much more natural way. You're not trying to cover one eye and squint. You do, I'm guessing, maybe lose half a magnitude or something like that. But I think you gain a lot back by that sort of sheer comfort and the pleasure of using both eyes.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm just getting into bino viewing. Again, I tried it once before, and I really
I thought you tried it 3 times before, Shane.
Yeah, two or 3 times for sure. And the thing is I really didn't try in either of those attempts. What I should say is I've owned a BinoViewer multiple times, and I really didn't use it enough to really get a good feel for it. So this current run at it, I've committed to basically BinoView exclusively. Now there's a few exceptions to that. And I've really been enjoying it. Now, I've only done it in the backyard. I haven't done it under a dark sky yet. So that'll be the next test. But I tell you, in the backyard, it has extended the amount of time I do spend observing. Like, I don't think my sessions are any longer. It's just during that session, I'm observing almost 100% of it because the comfort level is so much better. Like, I don't have to take a break to just give my eye a bit of a rest because you're squinting, the whole time. It's just a wonderful way to observe. And I think this might be the way I just proceed on a go forward basis, is primarily bino viewing.
Yeah, I definitely find it less fatiguing.
Yeah. And you have, what kind of bino viewers do you have? Because the ones you have, I think they don't, you don't need an optical corrector, like a magnifier or Barlow or anything like that, do you?
Yeah, that's right. So if you look up, it's called a Techno Sky, a linear bino viewer.
Yes.
and I bought mine from Telescope Express in Germany. And you're right, because of course when you put your eyepiece in the focuser, it's where it needs to be. But then, of course, if you put the binocular in, your eyepiece is now whatever it is, 100 millimeters further away. So you'd put a corrector in to bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
So there it is. Where's the picture? Somewhere in there. But the beauty of these binoculars is you don't need, therefore, that optical corrector to bring the eyepieces into focus.
Now, is there any? I think I've read some reviews about these bino viewers. Is there any? Is it light cutoff, or is there vignetting that happens with these? I can't remember.
So there's two shortcomings I've come up with so far, and the first one is that if you look at anything pretty bright, you do get a lot of reflections in there.
Okay. So
when I look at, say, Jupiter or Vega, you can see the reflections bouncing around inside the binocular, but it's like anything. With a bit of time, your eyes can look past it, but it's not very pleasing. But looking at a dimmer star field or a deep sky object, you don't get any reflections at all. And the other constraint you have is that it's exit pupil, if that's the right word. What do you call it? The diameter that the light comes into is only 17 mil. So you can only use, so I have two sets of eyepieces, the 90 millimeter panoptic, which get vignetted down from 68 degrees down to, I don't know, guessing about 50.
Okay.
So, but again, when you're looking with both eyes, of course, it feels much wider than that.
Yes.
And then when I've got a higher power version of 30 millimeter Naglers, but they aren't vignetted because they are less than 17 millimeters. Mm-hmm. It's not exit pupil. What's the word I'm looking for when you have the aperture that the light comes through? I can't remember what it's called now.
Do you mean like the field stop diameter?
Field stop, that's the one. Yes, field stop diameter is 17 mil.
Yeah, I renewed my nerd card last week. So it's all still fresh.
Well, you passed the test, Chris. That was
there. We go. Yeah. I couldn't find your sketch on your site. I know it's fairly recent. It might not be up yet. I actually did the same sketch recently. There's my sketch of the North American Nebula from October 10th.
So I had a question for you guys. And you obviously enjoy using smaller, more portable telescopes. So why? 'Cause I can't help but thinking, well, you must like very dim views then.
I guess that's
fair.
accurate.
That's a fair assessment. Yeah. Next topic.
So I guess you're trading, if you've got the whole of the North American Nebula, you've obviously got a very wide field of view.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is sort of a refined sketch. Actually, I sketched the whole star cloud, but then when I took it inside afterwards, it was sort of difficult. I couldn't figure out how to differentiate the glow from the star cloud and the glow from the nebula. So when this is sort of a final sketch. I'm not a very good artist or anything like that, but you kind of get the general shape. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to put the North American Nebula into sort of my final sketch there. But what I'm going for anyway is two things. I'm going for really wide fields of view. I really like wide fields of view. I know you've got the Canon 15 by 50 IS binoculars, I think, which those are amazing. My friend Mike has those, and I steal those quite frequently. I've made tons of observations with them. I love those for wide field of view. And then Shane helped me put this little 50 millimeter telescope together for getting these super, super wide field of views. But I also have a Takahashi FC100, which is a 4-inch f7.4. And that telescope gives nice wide field of view as well. And it's super light. It's only 5.5 pounds the way I have it set up. And then I've got a Borg 5-inch apochromat f6, which weighs 7.5 pounds. So I just really like those wide fields. And here in Saskatchewan, it's so dark. Like, where we observe, which is in I observed primarily like in a darker green zone or like a 6.3 magnitude zone, and can see pretty faint stuff from there. And typically like getting close to a 6th magnitude site is only a 15 or 20 minute drive away at most. So portability and ease of use. And then the other thing is is it gets so cold here in the winter that, we want to make sure that we're able to, go and get set up really quick and tear down quick. And the cool down time on bigger instruments is a huge hindrance. Like sometimes when Mike brings his 12-inch out, we get stuck waiting for it to cool down, and we've spent nights just observing through like my 4-inch or 5-inch because his telescope never cooled down enough. The whole sky just looks like jello through it, kind of thing, right? So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's one of the big reasons why I got rid of my 12 inches. Is I found that many nights it never cooled down, like it never acclimated to the ambient temperature because the temperature just either declined really quickly or just kept going down, and then the almost knocked over the Saturn rocket here. I got to stop talking with my hands.
that could have been fatal.
Yeah.
But it's like Apollo 13 all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
So how cold does it get then for you? So I'm thinking back in England then, a cold winter's night would be maybe minus 5 degrees Celsius, minus 10 degrees. Minus 10 would be pretty cold. It gets further, if you go further north in England, up to, or Scotland. But,
well, in the heart of winter here, if we had a minus 5 degree night, we might observe in a t-shirt because we're usually...
That's party night, is it?
Yeah, like the downside. So if it's a clear night, then there's no clouds to, kind of insulate or keep some of the heat in. On a clear night in the middle of winter, I would say it's typically minus 20 to minus 30 degrees.
If we're lucky. That's when we go observing. If it gets colder, we don't.
Yeah. And sometimes it is colder. And here, because it is flat prairie and there's not a lot of trees, the wind is what really gets us. You add a wind chill on top of that, and winter observing becomes a little more challenging. So yeah, the smaller telescopes are nice for that. And there's another aspect about small telescopes that I kind of like unintentionally maybe discovered for myself, and unintentionally still do occasionally, but if I take my little 50 millimeter out and I try to observe Jupiter for the evening, I will see some detail in the cloud bands. It won't just be colors. Like I'll be able to see some fine detail. I shouldn't say fine detail, but some detail. And I feel then after observing with smaller apertures for a period of time and then going to a larger one, like my 76 or my 100, I feel like I'm twice the observer because it's like, wow, look at how big everything is and look what I can see now. And I don't know if that actually does help with the observing skills or not, but I feel like it does sometimes. And, it definitely lets me appreciate the larger apertures, especially when, one of our friends like Mike or a few other folks that have bigger apertures, when they bring it out, I love looking through it. I do love aperture. I just like it when somebody else owns it and goes to all the trouble of hauling it and setting it up.
The best big bulb is somebody else's, isn't it?
It is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think there's almost, isn't it? Everyone says go for aperture, get the biggest aperture you can afford. Aperture is king. But certainly budget, the cost of it, and what I call that sort of ease of use, that logistics side, they're definitely the king makers.
Yeah.
Because I think back to have my little 14-inch Skywatcher Dob, and hauling that into the back of the car, to drive up to Salisbury Plain, and then of course coming back at 3 a.m. and having to put it back in the back of the car. Oh no, my poor back.
Yeah, exactly.
But there was talking of good views. When we were at Kelling last weekend, there were 2 binocular telescopes, homemade binocular telescopes that people that had. One was a 7-inch pair of Maxutovs, and one was a 6-inch pair of refractors.
I'm really, really excited to hear. I put this in the notes because it looked like to me, now I could be wrong, but they looked like Matsumoto mirror diagonals on the back of these 7s.
Yeah, the EMS Erect, was it mirror system or something it's called? Yes, that's right. Yeah, really good views. We looked at Jupiter.
I always wanted to look through those. What did you guys look at, and how did they?
Well, there was a big queue, as you can imagine, for a pair of 7-inch binoculars, and we looked at Jupiter. And you could, even though the scene was pretty cruddy, you could see details between the bands on Jupiter.
Wow.
And then M82 as well. And again, going back to that point we had earlier, being able to look with both eyes, so pleasing, so much better for the, the eye-brain combination. Really good. I mean, yeah, really good.
And what was the other one? I guess I missed. You said there was a 6-inch refractor binocular telescope as well. Can you tell us about that?
That's right. Yeah, there's a guy called Ez Reed who's sort of quite well known in the UK astronomy community, and he put these binoculars together using a whole series of diagonals. 1.25-inch diagonals to bring the optical path together.
Okay.
So poor man's Matsumoto's.
Yeah, I've seen those before, and I've always wondered, how effective that would be. In fact, I was considering like the 50 millimeter Borg that I sold to Chris. I was considering turning that into a binoscope, but then just stopped the pursuit because I felt like a 50 millimeter binoscope probably wasn't going to impress me that much. But a 6-inch that's different.
That's it.
Yeah,
cool. I have a lot of questions about your observatory. I don't think we're gonna have enough time. I was looking at your recent video on building a concrete versus steel pier, though, and it looks like you ripped out the steel pier and you put in a concrete pier. And my question is, why?
The steel pier, although it could take the weight, wasn't flush to the floor.
Oh,
so I tried putting some. Obviously, when it was made, it obviously bows slightly at the bottom. When it gets welded, the metal plate gets welded to the vertical pier, and it always used to slightly vibrate if you touched the telescope or slewed or adjusted the focus. So it wasn't very stable. So although it could carry the weight, the compressive load of having the big telescope and the mount on. So I looked around at getting a more sturdy pier, one that you could bolt down more securely, but they're hundreds of pounds, 500 pounds, whatever that is.
Yeah, they're like $1,000 Canadian starting. Yeah.
And then, umpteen bags of cement, paid the builder in, a little thank you as well. And, it was a fraction of the price.
Very cool. Yeah. I noticed I watched that video. I didn't listen to it, but I was watching it. And there was a part where you were digging out the air gap or whatever it is between the bottom of the pier and the observatory. So I was wondering, was that like insulation? Do you have anything between the observatory and the bottom of the pier, and sort of what is below the pier itself? So
when they built the observatory, they dug a 3-foot by 3-foot hole straight down, and then around that have built the wooden floor. Yeah. So there's an air gap of whatever that is, 1/2 inch, 12 mil around the concrete floor, so that as you walk around, the vibrations of your feet don't go into the concrete pier. So do you have do you have anything in that gap, or do you just leave it open? No, just leave it open. The only thing I have going in there is the drain port from the dehumidifier. Oh, okay. And it just trickles out. Okay. Yeah. I noticed. And 10,000 spiders live down there, and there's a dust cap or two that's, when you drop a dust cap and it goes, oh, God, it's went straight down the gap. And you can see it, but you can't get them out. So, I have to go buy some more replacements. You need to get one of those claws from the from the game, or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised. Well, I guess not that surprised. You were at the star party and you were talking about the dew heaters selling out. I remember those days quite well from living near the ocean. It's crazy how much dew there can be. I was back home and we're going to have a really good night, and the sky was clearing off and the sun was about an hour from setting, and the dew was already forming. You can always taste it, when the humidity rises, you can feel the humidity just rolling in off the sea. Yeah. It's just nuts. I don't miss that. So we don't have humidity here very often. It's a rare event. So much so that I threw my dew shield away when I moved here. So. Oh wow. Well, I had it and I was putting it on, and someone said, "What is that?" I'm like, "Well, it's a dew shield. It helps keep the dew off the optics." They're like, "Why would you use that?" People are just baffled by it, right? So after a few weeks of observing, I was like, you don't need it here. It's not necessary. So yeah, we're lucky that way. But
we're unlucky when it comes to the real cold weather. So yeah. Well, I think we have probably just a couple minutes left. Mark, I didn't know if there's any other topics we should touch on.
Yeah. So I started getting more and more into lunar and planetary imaging over the last few years, and I've been helped out by one of the UK observers, Martin Lewis, as well. And of course, the planets have then disappeared into the far southern sky. And last October, November time, I think it was, I've recorded one of my most, well, for me anyway, one of my most memorable observations of Mars. And I went into work the next day and I said, I photographed 5 volcanoes last night. And they said, what do you mean you photographed 5 volcanoes? I said, oh, sorry, they were on another planet. And again, what? I said, oh, there's Olympus Mons, a volcano on Mars. Well, I photographed that, and there's 2 other smaller ones alongside and a couple of smaller ones. But what I really liked about this observation was that there was actually a little white cloud appearing over one, I think it's Arsia Mons, one of the smaller Tharsis volcanoes. And as Mars slowly rotated, you can actually see the white cloud as the winds took it, stretching across the across the Martian surface. Yeah. And I thought, here I am with this second-hand telescope in the garden in southern England, watching clouds forming over a Martian volcano. And I thought that is pretty cool.
That and really, really good imaging. This is years ago when I had my observatory in the backyard and a tracking mount. I was doing a little bit of imaging, and I briefly tried solar system imaging and quickly gave up because I just didn't have I don't think I had the right equipment necessarily, and certainly not enough knowledge to do it. So when I see images like this, I really appreciate how good this is, and the effort that goes into it is outstanding. So do you do video captures and then grab the better frames and stack them?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're relying, because the atmosphere is naturally turbulent. That's why all these professional astronomers spend so much money putting observatories on mountains and up into space. Mm-hmm. So what we're relying on is brief, random moments of clarity, of still air. And the video camera just records away how many 100 frames a second. And then you reject all the blurry ones and stack the sharp ones one on top of each other. And in that way, you can then process that up and reveal all the fine details inside. But you've rejected all the ones that have been blurred by the Earth's atmosphere. And I look online and you look at people who are, imaging down in the tropics, Australia and South Africa and the Philippines. And you think, God, Jupiter's just barely clearing the treetops here at the moment, whatever it is, 20-something degrees.
Yeah.
And we had one night in the summer this year where the air was just still. There was hardly any turbulence at all. And I thought, this is what people talk about when they say, this is good seeing. And you can actually see details inside the Great Red Spot and surface markings on Ganymede, on Jupiter's moons. And I thought, this is pretty cool. And yeah, you got the picture there, haven't you? So that's Ganymede where your mouse is now, and you can see there's surface markings on it.
Yeah, you can see that. That's nuts. Isn't
that amazing? This is with a second-hand telescope in the garden in England.
Yeah.
You've got the Great Red Spot, and you can see the little storm clouds inside the Great Red Spot. Yeah. And that black dot just above it, that's the shadow of Europa. Europa is actually in front of the disk of Jupiter. It's sort of hidden in the cloud belts. And then top left is Io, and Io reappeared from behind Jupiter. And I made a little time lapse of this as well. So I observed for about 2 or 3 hours, just recording 2-minute video, 2-minute video, 2-minute video, 2-minute video, processed them all down to single frames. And then you can play them back as a time lapse. And you can see Jupiter's clouds rotating. You see, Europa disappear as it passes over, then the shadow, then Ganymede comes in, and Io reappears from the back. And this 3-hour video, or this 3-hour observation I reduced down, you've got real solar system dynamics happening in real time in front of the eyes.
Incredible. Outstanding imagery.
That's because I haven't sent you the bad ones though, Shane. That's the best one. That's the best one. The other ones I haven't really.
Well, when I observe Jupiter and visually, and I take in as much as I can, What I like to do the next day is go to Chris Go. I think he observes out of the Philippines. He images Jupiter an awful lot and then posts it online. And oftentimes he'll have an image, of the night that I was out observing, assuming it was clear and he was able to get out. But, it's a really nice resource to kind of contrast or to compare what I saw with my eye to what was actually visible that night. But, and like Chris is well renowned for having really, really good image quality, and yours is right on par. Like there's no difference in my mind. Like your images are outstanding.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. If I'm on the par with someone like Chris Go, I'll take that. Even half the success would be quite. But we use atmospheric dispersion correctors when the planets are low down. You get this sort of blue and red fringing, so you have to dial in these prisms to correct for that color dispersion. And then you find people in Australia and the Philippines say, "No, don't bother with that. The planets are overhead. We don't have to worry about that."
Yeah.
And I'm there going, I can only image Jupiter briefly because it appears from behind the tree, and there they are. It's overhead.
Yeah.
So we do need to move to Tenerife.
Agreed. Yeah. Because the other side of this is when the planets are high enough for us, it's wintertime, and then it's cold and it's miserable and.
Yeah, there's no perfect place, as you say, isn't it? We, when we go to Tenerife, we really enjoy that. And then you look, La Palma at the moment, they can't observe, you can't fly there because the volcanoes are erupting.
Back to the volcanoes.
Yeah, so it's
always back to the volcanoes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's really awesome. I think we're pretty much at time, folks. It was really great having you on, Mark. And if people want to check out your YouTube channel, what's the best way for them to find it?
So if you go onto YouTube, it's Refreshing Views, and it's deliberately designed to be sort of informal, good fun, enjoy observing the night sky.
Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed watching your videos, and it was really awesome chatting with you today. So thanks for joining us, and thanks, Shane, and thanks, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mark. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. Really interesting. I say, enjoy that minus 30 degrees observing. At least there's no mosquitoes, I guess, now at this time of year.
Yeah, that's the trade-off.
Great. Thanks again.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.